let's take a moment to discuss OAuth. OAuth can be pretty confusing. The first thing we need to talk about is the difference between OAuth 1 and OAuth 2. OAuth 1 is the original. I haven't seen it in the wild in a little bit, and we're not going to be discussing it today. We are going to be dealing entirely in this class in OAuth 2. OAuth is an open standard for authorization, not authentication. It is one of the things that I see most people make the sort of immediate mistake about, is that OAuth 2 is not about helping your users authenticate. It is about helping authorization workflows. Specifically, it is here to try and help provide secure delegated access. And you know, that mouthful is something else, but it's really important. So let's talk about it from an actual flow, right? We're going to have a user that has some data, right? They are a resource owner according to the OAuth spec. And the user wants to give some third-party app, a client, limited or scoped access to whatever data is theirs and stored on some resource server. And they're going to give this access to the third-party app after authenticating and confirming permissions with an authorization server. Okay, let's try and break that down because there's a lot there. Let's pretend that we have a service which is going to help us schedule our tweets on Twitter. But that means that they need the ability to access our Twitter account, and we don't want to give them our username and password. We just want Twitter to allow them to do a few specific things. So we say, yes, we're going to connect our tweet scheduler account to Twitter. So we show up on the account and we click the Connect to Twitter button, and they redirect us to Twitter. We're going to log into Twitter, and Twitter is then going to say, I see that you're trying to authorize the tweet scheduler to tweet on your behalf. Do you want to do this? You're going to say yes, at which point Twitter is going to send you back to the tweet scheduler, and tweet scheduler will say, yes, I'm connected. Now what's happening internally is that tweet scheduler has gone back to Twitter with a token that Twitter gave it, and has the ability to then interact with Twitter and post on your behalf in the future. So this authorization provides an authorization token to the tweet scheduler. Matt Raible, I think, has one of the best quotes about this. He likens the whole thing to a hotel key card, right? You show up in a hotel, you're going to say, yes, I have a reservation and I would like access to your room. You're effectively going to some sort of authorization server and you're saying, I would like access to this other thing, and they're going to give you this token that gives you access to the hotel room that you've paid for. The analogy doesn't quite line up. In particular, in both this quote as well as our example, one key thing to note is that our resource server and our authorization server are the same, but we'll come back to that in a second. The bottom line is that it's like having a hotel key card. It's like being granted limited access to the hotel. You just get this one thing that you want that you are authorized to. So OAuth, in a nutshell, once again, is about authorization. It is possible to do authentication with OAuth. In fact, there is an entire separate specification about it called OpenID Connect that we will not be seeing in this class, but just so you know that it's there. But it is fundamentally about authorization, not about authentication. And again, as I've already stated, in our both Matt Raible's quote and in the example that we just saw, the authorization server and the resource server, in our example was Twitter, were the same, and that is not necessarily true in the wild. There is one last thing to know about OAuth. OAuth has multiple different processes for interacting with whatever it is that you're trying to interact with. And they all have slightly different trade-offs. They're used in slightly different contexts. We're not going to see all of them. OAuth could be its class of its own. We are instead simply going to focus on the authorization code grant type and the password grant type, which are the two that I have seen most often in the wild and I think will be most applicable for any web application that you're building. Which we should stop for just a second and answer the question of, wait, why do we need OAuth? Well, in the event that you're building a service that has to allow any sort of other client access, OAuth is going to be the way you want to go. But additionally, in today's world, you may be building microservices. You may be using Django to communicate with a whole bunch of other microservices, or maybe you have multiple Django microservices, and you want to handle authorization in only one place. Well, you could use OAuth internally on your microservices. So there are a whole lot of benefits to understanding this, if only to know when to use it, which is exactly why we're going to see what we do in the next video.